haven't heard Mr. and Mrs. Lipovetsky in a long time. Thank you.
When I hear that, I'm reminded of our wedding. And at our wedding, at a Jewish wedding, there's a room that you go to afterwards. And traditionally, you close yourself in a room and you're supposed to do something to consummate your marriage. But what we did in that room, I took out her BlackBerry and I made her change her last name from her maiden name to my name, literally after we stepped away.
That was the beginning of Mr. and Mrs. Lipovetsky.
Yes. I don't place value in the comments made by people hiding behind the anonymity of the internet. We put everything out there, so not everything, but we're transparent. People know who we are. But when, I don't know, Susie Happy Pants from Omaha with no profile picture and a private account, says that, has a comment about our age gap and calls me a pedophile and her a gold digger, I don't know, I just don't care because It's just not relevant.
Yeah, but those Susie Happy Pants from Omaha gave me amazing material for content. Like some of our best performing content was us playing on these comments of the age gap and the gold digger.
Yeah.
So thank you, Susie from Omaha.
Hello, my wonderful listeners, and welcome to this week's CATAMANIA episode. I have been inspired by many couples that I have, met, been surrounded by, or been lucky enough to surround myself with. And today I have the privilege to interview a couple that is an inspiration to millions of people. It's a couple that is a great family example and just overall somebody that I think we can learn a lot from on how to have a successful relationship, successful life, successful family, and basically anywhere you can insert word successful into any field and area of our life. You most likely know them from social media. They are both influencers, entrepreneurs. They are both podcast hosts. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to just introduce them. Mr. and Mrs. Lipovetsky.
Yes.
Gary and Valeria.
I haven't heard Mr. and Mrs. Lipovetsky in a long time. Thank you.
When I hear that, I'm reminded of our wedding. And at our wedding, at a Jewish wedding, there's a room that you go to afterwards. And traditionally, you close yourself in a room and you're supposed to do something to consummate your marriage. But what we did in that room is I took out her BlackBerry and I made her change her last name from her maiden name to my name in that room, literally after we stepped away from.
That was the beginning of Mr. and Mrs. Lipovetsky.
Yes.
I love that.
We're so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. You guys are parents of 3 boys. I'm sure your schedule is very busy every day. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on my podcast and chat. And like I mentioned, I think, I always say that you can feel the energy of people through the screen of the phone, right? Because you put your heart and soul into your content, what you post, what you share. And it's undeniable that when you look at your guys' social media, there's just a sense of peace and harmony.
Really?
I want to go back to the last name because this is an interesting subject. So were you going to change your last name to his? Yeah, that was always the plan?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know any other way. I'm traditional like that. To me, it didn't make sense. So I was very excited to become a Lipovetsky.
It's a really nice last name.
I don't know about that.
Why?
It's a really nice last name?
Valeria Lipovetsky.
It sounds nice because there's nothing worse than, this is going to be but there's nothing worse than when a girl gets married and she changes her last name and it's it doesn't sound nice with her name. Yeah. It sounds very nice with Valeria.
It sounds sounds noble.
It sounds noble?
It sounds like blue blood.
Exactly. Whoa, yes, you're speaking my language. Yes, it's the L's. I think it's the flowy sound of it, if that makes sense.
Does she sound like an oligarch's wife?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Yeah,
I'll go with that.
For sure.
That's a good personal brand to have. I like it.
The oligarch's wife.
That's a vibe that you just, I even unknowingly always want to shoot for. I identify as an oligarch's wife, Why not? And then Alex is yes, and I identify as an oligarch.
Listen, it's the energy, right? It's all about carrying that energy. Did you change your last name?
I didn't. For no other reason. Like if it meant a lot to Alex for me to change it, I would have. Only because by the time we got married, I had already built a bit of a brand online with my last name. And then when we sat down and we talked about it, Alex is like, you know what? Like, you've been a cat. You can't. He's so funny. He's like, his last name is Kukol. It's, Serbian. He's like, no offense, but like, you can't be a Kukol. You've always been a Cataman. So just keep it. So he was super chill about it. But it's funny because we're also very traditional in many ways when it comes to family. And so are his parents. His parents are immigrants from former Yugoslavia to Canada. And it was so funny. His mom and I have a really great relationship, but it was a really funny situation when she was like, so when are you guys like submitting your documents so that you can change your last name? And I'm like, I'm not changing my last name. And she was like, what? She was like genuinely concerned. She's like, wait, what do you mean you're not changing your last name? And I'm like, your son and I talked about it. It's all good. And she has like a really thick Serbian accent. She's like, you guys you're doing it your own way, whatever, So, and that was it. That was like the only interaction that I had about the last name.
But it's tough for you because you have a cool last name.
Yeah.
Not your maiden name is a cool,
Thank you.
That's a tough thing for a woman who has a cool maiden name.
I didn't have a cool maiden name. I didn't have any connection to it.
What was your maiden name?
Efanova. So it was just kind of random. I actually like Lipovetsky better.
It's cool, but like Valeria Lipovetsky is like, okay, so that was blue blood. This is like the blue, like the purest of blue blood.
Exactly. Efanova just felt like it's like there's a wall
Very
there.
Russian.
You hit a wall.
Yeah.
You know?
Gotcha. Well, I think it's also because Valeria didn't really have a connection with her biological father, and it was her biological father's name.
Right.
So that was also part of it.
Oh, now you're taking it a whole other direction.
Oh, you're like, nobody knows. All right. Okay. It's a big secret.
Yeah, it's not a big secret.
No, I mean, one of my first viral videos on YouTube that I feel like really launched my personal brand was the video about going back to Russia to meet my biological father. I was 26 when that happened, and I went back with my mom, and we kind of did like a roots trip, and meeting him was on the agenda. So I documented it. Wasn't planning to post it, but when I was just sitting and editing it, I don't know, something kind of intuitively said people will connect to this. Like it will change someone in some way. So I posted it, and it became one of kind of my, foundations of my brand.
Good for you for having the courage to be vulnerable like that, because it's not easy, there's always like that. Do people will they connect with it? Is it too personal? I did see a video recently you posted that I really liked, and that was about the fear that people have of going on social media and being too public. And you kind of mentioned that you're not as public as people might think you are. You don't share everything. How do you maybe pick and choose like what would people connect with? And I agree with you. I mean, there's so many families that I feel like have had these situations where they probably saw such a huge connection with you in that. It's like, wow, she went through something that, maybe I'm going through or went through. So how do you guys pick and choose what to share?
I mean, for me, I kind of have a couple criterias that I think about when I'm deciding if I want to share something or post something. I think the first thing is like, is that something that I've resolved already? You know what I mean? Because there is this danger of putting something out there where you still haven't processed and opening it up to the world to put their input. That I don't do. So I always make sure that whatever I bring forward, it comes with me already making a decision about how I feel and where I stand. So that's like a big criteria for me. Another thing is like, for me, my brand is storytelling. Like I love to share my journey and all the lessons that I'm learning. And I look at these experiences in my life and asking the question, will someone find value in it? Like, is there an experience? Is there a lesson to learn from it? So I also think about that. But I don't know, in terms of like privacy, for me, a hard no is anything to do with the kids. I always think about, they're going to get older, and I don't want to put something out there that may jeopardize or embarrass them in the future. And then we have a corner of our marriage that is sacred to us that we don't share. But everything else is like, what is privacy really? Like,
right.
what is, I come to realize that we're all going through the same experiences, maybe in a different timeline, but that's the magic of, I think, community, right? Is like sharing these stories and opening up and feeling like I'm not the only one that's going through it. So to me, that's kind of what I think about when
I'm a lot simpler. So I have this thing where I just don't care what people think. So I think going into this business in general, and in general being in the public eye in any way, you really have to not care what people think. And when I say that, I mean, like, don't do anything immoral or illegal. Like, I don't think we do anything immoral. I know we definitely don't do anything illegal. So to me, there's really nothing to hide, right? So there's nothing that private. And to Valeria's point, it's anything to do with anything that will embarrass the kids, we won't put out. So there have been occasions where the kids have, like, just kid stuff, like they'll fart in a bathtub. So we won't put that.
Right.
Not because there's anything damaging, but because when they get older, when they're teenagers, I can understand how other kids would make fun of them. So we don't do stuff like that. But I think the thing is, you just got to not care what people think. Once you don't care, once you're truly comfortable with yourself and you don't care what people think, you have a lot of freedom to share.
No, but we're like, we don't sit and talk about our sex life.
We don't, because it's just not relevant. Like, why would we talk about that?
But that's, I think, where sometimes people lose, that gets blurred. Like, those lines get blurred, because I think sometimes people confuse authenticity with oversharing, and there needs to be some limitations. Like, you need to have a framework of, like, this is mine and I keep it to myself, and this is what I can, bring forward.
I think it's based on the individual. I think whatever each of us is comfortable with as individuals, that's what we share. If you look at people like the Kardashians, they'll share things about their sex life. When Khloe's husband was in this, like, brothel and he overdosed on drugs, like, that's ultra personal, but that's what they're comfortable with. So I think as an individual, whatever you're comfortable with sharing, the thing is, for me, I don't even think about these things. Like, on the fly, when we're creating content, there are certain things I'll just delete it because I don't give it a second thought. But most stuff isn't that private. Like, it really isn't.
Gary, $1 million question. How did you achieve not caring about what people think?
I think I'm just older.
Okay.
I cared what people think when I was probably in my 30s. I'm 51 now. And I cared what people thought when I was much younger. But I just realized it's just a trap. Like, it's just a trap. It's this, you're in this hamster wheel and you keep caring what people think largely is about trying to please other people. Right? And I don't know. I think it just happens naturally. I think young people are at a big advantage when they don't care early in life, when they stop caring early enough. Because at the end of the day, in reality, nobody actually cares.
Correct.
They don't. Like, when you do something and you think, oh my God, this is so embarrassing, or nobody cares. People already forgot about it the second after it happened. Yeah.
Valeria, did you get there? Like, do you care? I mean, you've been doing this for quite some time.
Yeah.
Do you still have moments?
I really cared in the beginning. And I think having Gary, and in general, like, someone who is older and with experience and can look back and be like, listen, all these things are just complete nonsense.
I'm sorry. I'm just laughing because I remember these conversations, and I remember when she would say something or do something, and in Russian I'd say, Katya Raznica. Like, what's the difference? What do you care? Who cares if you put that out? Who cares if somebody saw this or that? It makes no difference.
Yeah, but I feel like now I'm pretty much, like, closer to the point of not caring at all. I wouldn't say I don't care at all, but I care very, very little.
So I know the piece of content that you're referring to when I was talking about, the whole thing with privacy. So let me ask you, what piece of content do you recall seeing of ours that you felt was too private? Right. None. That's my point.
Yeah, exactly. It's very authentic, and it feels like you guys are letting people into the parts of your life that strictly inspire, encourage, or, like, create that vulnerability where, like, people connect to something, a bit of a struggle or something that you have, and they look at you and they're, like, inspired, right? At least that's what I see, right? I'm like, whoa, this is a very inspirational thing. Do you ever get jealousy from people? Like, do people ever comment, negative things that are very clearly coming out of jealousy?
I'm sure they do, but I think at this point, I've been doing this for 7, 8 years now. And I have this in the beginning, at some point of my journey with social media, I've kind of realized that there's these 3 buckets. There are buckets where I place these comments that I read into. One bucket is, pure kind of people just projecting. They just need to let it out, and it's okay. You don't pay attention to those. You're just like, okay, you go here, enjoy the space, enjoy this playground. There's some that will have, feedback in a way, but they're maybe saying it in the wrong way. But these are people that I read it, and the secret is to really be self-aware and ask yourself, this is kind of triggering to me. I wonder why. So I'm kind of exploring that. Oh, why was it like annoying to me? Why did it, matter? And that brought me a lot of amazing lessons, So yeah, people said it in a mean way, but there was something to it. They just didn't know how to say it right. And then there's the cohort of just like, it's really respectful, nice, like feedback. Even if it's negative feedback, just something to correct, it's presented in a great way. Anyways, to me, like social media been a journey of like, it's like I've been going to therapy, because through all these people and all these comments and all this feedback, I've learned so much about myself. So to your question, is there jealousy? Yeah, I'm sure there is, but I don't really look at it. Like, I don't care where it's coming from. For me, I like to look at it. How can I benefit from it? Right?
Yeah. I don't place value in the comments made by people hiding behind the anonymity of the internet. Like, we put everything out there. So we're not everything, but we're transparent. People know who we are. But when, like, I don't know, Susie Happy Pants from Omaha, with no profile picture and a private account, says that has a comment about our age gap and calls me a pedophile and her a gold digger. I don't know. I just don't care, because it's just not relevant.
Right.
So that's one type of comment, and there's a lot of those. There's actually whole gossip.
Yeah, but those Susie from Omaha, actually
Susie Happy Pants.
Susie Happy Pants from Omaha gave me amazing material for content. Like, some of our best performing content was us playing on these comments of the age gap and the gold digger. Yeah. Like, so thank you, Susie from Omaha.
There's gossip sites. They're dedicated. I've seen gossip sites with, I don't know, 5,000, 10,000 like pages over the years, just talking nastiness about us. And yeah, in the beginning it bothered me, but I just don't care. Like, it doesn't, again, these are people who have real problems in their lives, right?
I'm kind of flattered though. 10,000 pages, that's a lot.
But it's like,
you're doing well.
It's like a Kardashian thing. I mean, they're happy when that happens, right? Because to them it's all media. Controversy is great. That our Valeria's brand, my brand, we're not controversial per se. But then there are people who actually give genuine feedback, and the genuine feedback I think is really valuable. Those to me are like, when looking at this as a business and when analyzing data, you also want to analyze the qualitative aspect of how people consume your how people consume your content. So there's the quantitative aspect, how many people engage, likes, comments, shares, all those kind of things. But then there's the qualitative aspect when people have something potentially negative or critical to say. That's actually really valuable information. And I think creators need to really dig into those comments.
I like that. Yeah. Some of the feedback that you get to kind of see maybe there's something you can improve. If it's like
improve or spin off into great content.
Yeah. I want to see those pieces of content. Please do.
I actually have one it went up on TikTok yesterday. It's like playing on a trend, but it was so perfect. I was like, yes,
Was that the one I married a rich man and I still have to work?
Yeah.
Damn it.
Rude. Me thinking I'm going to be a trophy wife. But yeah, so to me, I guess, back in the beginning of it all, I was kind of simplifying it and being like, oh, these are haters and this is a hater. And then I was like, well, this doesn't serve me because I'm not gaining anything from it. Just calling any feedback or anyone that doesn't agree with me a hater is not moving the needle for me personally on my growth. So I started just looking at it in like different angles and be like, okay, this is interesting. This is, a piece that inspires me. A comment here made me think twice. Like, I like that.
You almost like relabeled how you look at it.
Absolutely.
I like that a lot.
Do you have that a lot with your content?
Yeah, a fair bit. I obviously talk. I make most of my content is comedy, but I make a lot of fun of things, and then I also, comedy just it has to be controversial, otherwise it's not going to be funny, right? Not that I necessarily on purpose try to like make it controversial, but I'll post something about, you know, more traditional family values, for example, and then I just get attacked, right?
But that's great.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, good. And it's interesting, like I've learned so much because, you know, I moved to Canada when I was very young. I met my husband when I was quite young. My husband is Slavic, so I didn't really have, you know, exposure to splitting bills, you know what I mean? Like this is something that I make fun of a lot, and I can't believe it.
Neither did my wife.
You didn't? No. I had exposure.
Well,
not with you.
Not with me, then.
Well, I didn't even ask because I just assumed that wasn't the case.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting when I post something. Even I don't think it's a controversial thing, but I'll get attacked, or you know, it's.
I mean, listen, I posted a sweet potato that I made in a microwave, and apparently, like, I'm killing the universe because microwave is radiation, and radiation kills you, and you're dead. So that's my comment section on my 5-minute potato video.
I keep coming back to not caring, and I apologize that it's a reoccurring theme, but you can't make everyone happy. It's not possible. No. During COVID, we went to one of the times when we escaped because Canada was really tight with, as you know, with COVID and the lockdowns, and we went to Costa Rica for a few months after Justin Trudeau had given like a guideline saying don't leave the country. Right. And we went. So we got attacked on YouTube specifically. We got attacked because we posted our travel vlog going to Costa Rica, and everybody said, oh, you know, people like you guys are killing the elderly because you're curing COVID, and you know. And we left Canada legally and we entered Costa Rica legally. But that's the thing, is you're always going to have people who are just. So again, you can't make them happy anyways. Yeah, no matter what, people are going to attack you for sure. My favorite one, just to close off the subject before we move on to something, is when, you know, Blue Rose 1775, you post something and she messages you with caps saying unfollowed. And I'm like, I thank you so much for letting me know. I had no idea you followed me in the first place, but like, I appreciate you letting me know. You know, it's like, it's very interesting, the dynamic that you see, because again, there's like that screen that prevents them from, for lack of a better word, my friend said that once, because she's very, you know, she's like, it prevents them from getting punched in the face. They would never say that in the face to me, you know, because I've received so much hate online, but in real life, whenever I go somewhere and people recognize me, and I'm sure, you know, no one, it's always just the most positive things, right? So because your haters aren't going to come up to you because they're scared. Like that's a scary thing to do, to come up to someone. When you talk about somebody DMing you and saying like unfollowed with, you know, all caps, I'll take it a step further. They'll unfollow, I'll block them too. I don't want them back. Gary likes this little game. Yeah, I don't want him back. I don't need him. It's okay. He needs to have the last word. No, it's not the last. I don't say anything. I just block them. I'll block people, and to be honest, I'll block people on her account too because I monitor that too. But I'll block people, and then they'll email. Some of them will email our corporate like email address, complaining. And then our CEO who runs our media company will call me and say, Gary, maybe you were like too heavy-handed. And I told her, don't worry about it. It's all good. I like it. I like your approach. It's just like, you know, straight. You're also from Eastern Europe, obviously. You speak Russian. I was born in Ukraine. You're born in Ukraine, okay. I don't speak Ukrainian. I only speak, because I was born during Soviet Union. Right. Yeah. That's my first language is Russian too, because, I mean, I wasn't born, I was born after the collapse, but my first language is Russian. And, but I was going to say it's very Eastern European of you to just like bluntly, I appreciate that. I think we need more of that, honestly. You know, when I was younger and I would date someone, you know, like there's a saying, I think in Russian, it's like, если я тебе не нравлюсь, ты мне like 10 раз больше не нравишься. Like, it's like if you don't like me, I don't like you 10 times more. So like, that's the thing, is if somebody has something negative to say, they say something inappropriate, you don't like me, good, you're blocked, you're gone, you're out of my life. Yeah. Well, let me help you even further. I think I think people should do it in real life too. Yeah. You should always do that audit. Blocked. Yeah. I like it. Yeah. So you said you started social media 7-8 years ago or so. What did you do before that? Was it how did you make that? She was making babies. So I was, yes, correct. No, I was modeling from age 15 until about 21. We got married. I got pregnant on the first day of our honeymoon, which was 3 days after our wedding, which was planned. I just didn't think it's going to happen so fast, but thank God. And then it was just
a period of me adjusting to being a mother and a wife. And
well, then we had another baby.
Then we had another baby.
Right after Jake was born.
Yeah. And then I decided to follow an interest that I had, which is nutrition. So I went to get my holistic nutrition certification. And that's kind of when I started exploring, okay, what do I do next? You know, I was 25, 26. And then I decided to go into nutrition, saw 2 clients, hated every minute of it. And then that's what brought me into social media. Just wanted to bring the information that I've learned to kind of a wider audience. And I started doing social media. YouTube was my first platform.
YouTube was your first platform. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I want to ask you all these questions too, but I know that you're going to be on my podcast on Monday. So I know I'm going to get a chance to. So I'm stopping myself from asking you. So, okay, let's continue.
Sounds good. I was going to ask you the same thing because you're also doing social media now.
Mm-hmm.
Was that something that came after Valeria? Like, did you decide to kind of enter that world?
So I spent, so when Valeria started, we partnered to create like an infrastructure around what she was doing. And we hired a CEO 4 years ago. And so I continue to work really closely with our CEO. But as of about a year ago, I started really letting go in terms of like operationally. I still speak with Rachel almost every day. And I asked myself, like, what should I do now? You know, I spent all of this kind of time and effort.
You were the CEO before that, basically.
Yeah, I didn't really ever give myself a title. I don't like I'm not a title kind of guy.
Yeah.
I just kind of.
He needed what needed to be done.
I just, like people ask me what do you do? It's whatever it takes, right? So whatever had to get done, like we hired people, managed people, created systems, like, accounting systems, content calendars, like all the processes and stuff. So we did that. And then we hired Rachel, who's just a much better operations person than I am. I'm not really I used to do operations back when I was younger. And then I kind of stepped away from it because I was like, okay, like what's next? I was really busy with the move. That was like a full-time job, like in terms of the immigration process, buying a house, renovating a house and all that, getting the kids enrolled in school. I spend more time with the kids, try to spend more time with the kids now. But now I said to myself, I'm going to start developing my own social media because I can't be again, it's like a Russian thing. I don't know how to translate it though, but it's like, I don't want to be a shoemaker with holes in my shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I be Valeria Lipovetsky's husband and not do anything myself and not create content that I think would add value? And then there's a practical reason for me to create the content too, in all the stuff that we do and the kind of the business ventures that we have. So, and I enjoy it. I'm really loving my podcast. It's so much fun. It's like, I want to say it's a free education, but running a podcast is quite expensive. So it's an education. It's an education. I get to meet a lot of cool people.
Yeah.
And I get a chance to really sit down and just learn about their journeys. It's really fascinating. So so that's what I'm up to now, among other things. But yeah.
You guys have 3 boys.
Mm-hmm.
Now I love, men are great, boys are great, but we don't have kids yet, but I have friends who have boys and who have girls, and boys are troublemakers when they're young. You guys look fresh. You look like you get enough sleep. I don't know if it's a skincare regimen. Like, what's happening? Share your secrets with us.
I mean, our kids are older, so I feel like, I'm calling this like the honeymoon stage now with the kids because it's this in between. No, you don't know what's to come.
They're still savages.
You don't know what's to come.
Yeah, you don't know what's coming our way. I'm talking.
I was never a teenage boy. Okay.
No, but I'm talking to now. But you forget. You talk to parents now. And the parents of teenagers, and I know that it's coming our way. So right now I'm enjoying this sweet spot of they're not babies, so I don't have to constantly be around picking up after them.
Except Max, he's a baby.
And then we're not there, and we're not in the teenage years yet. So this is now they're independent. They still want to be around us. Yeah, there's like small little whatever they fight among each other.
You're not answering the question. The question is how do you deal with these guys?
How do you look
the question
so
is why am I fresh?
Young, both
why am
of
I
you,
fresh? Because they're now more independent, and this is like a great stage. How do we handle it? I don't know. Just
Christina's asking why are you so good looking and have so many kids? How's that possible? Because she works out every day. She does Pilates and she does all kinds of stuff.
Was.
It was. She's like, how do you look so fresh? How's it possible?
While raising kids.
Yeah.
I prioritize myself.
Yeah.
I have the luxury to
that's the
prioritize
answer.
myself.
I would drop the microphone, but
So
this is a really good piece of equipment, and I'm gonna get.
So I'll tell you what it is. So we actually invest in it. It's a conscious thing, and a lot of it is money. Like we actually spend money for a nanny to show up at our house every day, Monday to Friday at 5:45 a.m. So we can be out the door at 5:50 to be in the gym at 6.
Yeah.
So she goes to her gym, I go to my gym, and like it starts with that. So you have to keep taking care of yourself.
Yes.
And that's an investment.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, we do that, and we try to stay as active as possible, and
try not to stress out too much about it. I feel like there's this now with parenting, we know so much, and there's so many experts yelling in your ear of like all these ways to raise kids, and all the terms of like childhood trauma and this and that. There's so much going on that I feel like for parents today is so much scarier to raise kids.
Right.
But I think just for me, at some point, I've realized that we're gonna mess them up either way. So just, do your best.
A lot of it is management.
Right.
Is like management, like time management and managing expectations. So I'll give you an example. Our kids go to a school where the school has this policy that if the kids want to talk to the parents, because the kids aren't allowed to bring phones to school and our kids don't have phones, that they'll give the kid a phone in the school and say, you can call your mom and dad. So I would get, and it would be me because it's me on file because she's on camera most of the day and we can't have the kids interrupting her. So they interrupt me. So they'll call me like 3-4 times a day to ask me just like kind of stupid shit, right? So I called the school and I said, I need to meet with you guys. We need to talk. So I went to the school and I met with the principal and I said, you have to start screening these phone calls. Like you have to ask them, why do you need to call your parents? What is it that you want? And if it's not time sensitive, that they need to speak with me in the moment, so you're not pulling me out of a meeting, then tell them to write it down and talk to me about it when they get home. So to your question, like how do you do it? I think a lot of parents, they are in a situation where there's like a term, it's like you're catching falling knives. They're always reacting to a situation with their kids, whereas, putting in those expectations to the point where I'm calling the school and I'm saying, guys, you need to make a judgment call before you call me and frazzle me and take me out of what I'm doing. So I think a lot of it is that. And a lot of it is like educating the kids on that too, saying like, don't just come to us with everything. Like, I think a lot of parents probably get they get annoyed because their kids are constantly interrupting them. So we're always trying to teach our kids, like, you have to find your moment, right? Yeah. So I think it's a lot of management.
We haven't gotten there yet, but we're working on it.
I know, but imagine how it would be if we didn't work on it. Like,
yes, of course,
complete animals.
No, it's a wild ride. There's no manual here. This is just like it's a shit show. And you're just...
Really I love that. After all of that, it's a shit show.
Because it really is. It really is.
It's like there's that term in Russian, artistic house, or what is it called? Like an artistic chaos, right? Like there's always a little bit of like an element of a chaos.
It would be worse if we didn't at least try to,
absolutely.
And getting them off devices helps a lot too, because if they're overexposed to devices, they become complete assholes.
Right. Yeah. Do you guys ever, so when in your parenting, do you ever have, I'm not going to say disagreements, because that's kind of, obviously you probably have some disagreements, but do you always make sure that whatever the message you give to your children, or if there's something that needs to happen, like, I don't know, take the device away or whatever, you're both always on the same page?
Yes and no. You just touched a button.
I'll tell you yes. I'll tell you.
I don't want you guys to fight. That's not what I meant to do.
We're not going to fight. We don't fight. I'll tell you how it's yes and no. It's yes, we both agree that we're going to do certain things. Okay. And then it's no, that Valeria doesn't do that thing anyways. So it's like having a fourth child. So as an example.
It's only, but let's make it clear. It's only when it comes to device. We've been having, this year has been a roller coaster of like controlling devices. And it's been a lot of work, but that specific area is where we have. If our 10-year-old was
here right now, your phone is there. You see it. It's kind of in your peripheral. You're looking at me, but your phone is there peripherally, right? If our 10-year-old was here, you would look down, your phone would no longer be there, and he'd be like locked in a room somewhere on Roblox. He would have gotten past your Apple ID. He would have figured it out.
Wow.
He would have taken a picture of your face from far away and then used it to get into, like, he would have figured it out.
Wow.
He's like a ninja hacker when it comes to these things.
I was going to say he's going to be for sure some kind of...
He absolutely will. But the point is Valeria agrees.
Right.
She's like, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to leave my phone lying around. I'm not going to leave my iPad lying around. I'm not going to leave my laptop lying around. I come home, She's working. I come home. He's literally on all 3 devices simultaneously of hers. I'm like, how did you even get her phone? How did you do all these things?
You're like, whoops.
Yeah. But her mom's the same way. So I have a policy with her mom now. When she comes into the house, she has to give me all her electronics. Because Jake will take it.
There's like a little shelf.
This is Gary's full-time job at this point.
I have a lock on my office door with a code. Yeah.
So it's active management, constant active management of events, devices.
Constantly.
Yeah. I saw a video recently that actually made me tear up. And you can ask my husband. I rarely ever tear up. You know where I come from. We don't show emotions, you know? But yes, but it actually made me tear up in a good way. I think must have been on your podcast. Gary, you said that, no, but I think Valeria's, yes. You said that, I think like your purpose in life, in your family, is to make sure that Valeria fulfills her full potential and more. And I'm gonna like literally get emotional now because it's so like, you know, and then the same for your kids. Like that is your purpose. And I realized in that moment that is the definition of a provider in the family. Because there's so many skewed messages out there. And I don't know if you find that too, especially, we're not going to mention any names because I don't want to give people, bad publicity is also publicity. But there's so many like skewed messages of what a provider is in the family, right? And many people interpret it as like, well, a provider is, woman is in the kitchen and, you know, I make money, that's it. And you know, all of these messages, all of these mixed messages that we get. And I realized, I was like, wow. That is because my husband is the same way. He says, my job is to create a space for you to do and be what you are meant to do and be. And I guess it isn't even really a question, but it's just, you know, good for us, Valeria, for finding these wonderful men. I know.
I love that observation. Sorry. That's really beautiful. I agree. I think I could never really put it into words, but you just did. And I think that's such a beautiful sentiment to share because, yes, there is a lot of confusion around what it means, especially these days. And I think that a lot of girls and a lot of women, not even girls anymore, older women even, you know, that grew up in a certain time and era. And even today, when you go on social media, you don't really understand what to look for. You don't really understand what will bring you closer to kind of, you know, having that happy marriage or happy relationship. So that's such a beautiful observation.
So this is a little controversial, and you know, you made a statement. I know exactly what I said. You're right. It's completely my responsibility to make sure she lives up to beyond 100% of her potential. You also said like I've created a safe space for her. The thing is, and this is the part that's controversial, is that safe space is a pressure cooker. So it's a space that space is like I'm constantly applying pressure in varying amounts depending on the circumstances and the time to make sure that she does fulfill that destiny. Because just creating a space and having a person go into that space and just, you know, hope that they succeed. So there is that pressure. And that's the controversial part, whereas I think a lot of women today will look at that and maybe they'll think I'm a jerk, but again, I don't care. Because at the end of the day,
this is a safe space.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm very conscious of the fact of two things. And I get a little emotional when I talk about this, but I'm 18 years older than my wife. Women live longer than men. So I know that there's going to be likely a 25 to 30 year period that Valeria is going to be alive and I'm not. And that's just the reality of the situation. So everything I do has to prepare her for life without me. And money is one thing. Obviously, like, you know, when that time comes, Valeria will be okay. The kids will be okay. But you need more than that. And she'll need more than that because we'll still have kids. And hopefully they'll be adults by that time. But still, she needs this education. She needs to know how to deal with pressure. She needs to know how to, you know, if you want to get specific, how to structure a team, how to deal with, you know, with people and the different things involved in running a business. She needs to know about kind of the practical things. I need to know that if something were to happen to me, then money, no money, doesn't matter. She's going to be okay. And now she has this asset, which was her personal brand, which she's always going to be okay. Because it's not only her personal brand. It's like, Valeria knows now, if let's say a brand approaches us, just to get specific, like industry specific, she'll know now, she'll be able to identify if she simply wants to get paid to promote something or if she wants equity in that company. She knows how to negotiate that equity deal. Do you know what I mean? She knows administratively how to make sure those shares get into like where they should be. She knows how to exercise options. Like she knows those things now. So that was important to me.
Amazing. Would you say that for a man, having a wife, getting married and starting a family generally pushes him to, become better, do better, achieve more things? And
so some men.
Yeah. Some do, yeah.
Some are the same rasguindiayo they were, before.
I know even of a different word, but I'm going to have to put that there's explicit content.
Yeah. I think that people get married for different reasons. Some are thinking that this will save them from themselves, and others just do it, unconsciously. So I think that the intention that they go into with is important and kind of dictates how they're going to move in that environment. But I don't know. What do you think? I feel like you a lot of your friends you've seen throughout the years, or people that you know. Do you feel like it changes people?
I can only see like a handful of men who I think, I don't want to say care about their wives, because I feel most men do care, but there's very few who are as crazy as I am when it comes to this. Right. And I think a lot of that has to do with kind of where I came from and the difficulties I had in my early life, knowing what worst case scenarios are, financially, family, and all different aspects of life. So yeah, I think it does change men. For a man, it's definitely a lot of pressure. We go into marriage. It's like we meet somebody, they're beautiful, we fall in love with them, and we get married, and real life starts really quickly. Yeah. And it's a lot of pressure. I still feel it every day. Like when she's unhappy or there's something wrong with the kids, it's like stabbing me in the heart. It really bothers me. It really bothers me because unfortunately, at this point, it's just a lot of it's not in my control anymore. I can't just like snap my fingers and make it go away. It's now a long-term thing. It's education. It's building resiliency. So, yeah.
It's very interesting, no? Like his perspective on marriage and fatherhood. Like it's very different than what most people experience, because I feel a lot of the conversations...
I don't know that it's better. It's just, it is.
Not that it's better. I don't think anything is worse or better. I think it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I think that, there's a lot of, marriages, partnerships, and a lot of people talk about like a partnership, but there's so many nuances inside a relationship, right? Gary took it upon himself to, create a safe space, but to his point also make sure that if something happens, I'm capable to do all the things that I need to do in order to keep our kids safe and myself safe. And, but a lot of people, and I got that comment before, by the way, they're like, oh, he's grooming, like the grooming part, which is so interesting to me.
But I am grooming you. I'm grooming you to be an independent, self-sufficient person.
Correct. But for some
kind
people,
of grooming, I would say.
Right. But for some people, it's a relationship of like, it's like a father and daughter, right? It's like a parent. And that was really interesting to me. But I find like that what makes me so proud of our relationship, the fact that he is, it's in his interest to make me stronger and more powerful. And yeah, maybe the age difference is a factor in it. I don't know if like younger, I don't know how it is in your relationship. You guys are closer in age, I'm guessing.
He's 8 years older.
8 years older. So I don't know if it's the same.
Still a meaningful difference.
Yeah, you don't know if it's the same energy, but like I wonder if is it the age? Is it like
if I was
your
younger,
philosophy about life?
If I was younger, she would have eaten me alive.
That's correct.
Yeah. I wouldn't have had the mental fortitude to deal with her.
What does that mean?
But I think that's the case.
Can you please expand on that?
Please expand?
I think, look, I've made the observation that men who are in relationships or in marriages with women their own age, they're not running things to their detriment, to the detriment of the union, to the detriment of the marriage as a whole. I think women are just far more mature than men. Like when you compare apples to apples, like a woman, let's say at the age of 30 and a man at the age of 30, a woman's just got her shit together way more than a man. Like Valeria's 33 now, and I remember myself at 33. It's like, so like, yeah, like you can't. I was a child, right?
Right.
So I think, I think that's what it is. I think that the age difference, and a lot of the times, I think is necessary, and it's kind of anecdotal. I don't have the data on it, but I feel that marriages with age differences, when the man is older, I think they probably, if I had to guess, they probably have a higher percentage and a higher likelihood of success.
I think you're right. I wouldn't be surprised. To be honest with you, my husband and I always talk about this, and I always tell him, like, this is the minimum age difference. I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I'm sure there's lots of successful couples. I mean, I know some couples who have even, you know, the woman is older. But generally speaking, like for me personally, I don't think I would be able to be with a man my age, because it's just, there's a certain level, because it takes time to build these things. It takes time to acquire certain, not to say that I'm like filled with wisdom, but you know, it takes time to.
No, but we women, like, we operate differently. Yeah. We observe differently. We're more connected to our intuition. Like we move different in the world. For men, it's really purely like years and experience, right? For them to get that.
I don't think a woman, I have to be careful. Everyone attacks me. I don't think a woman wants to feel in charge. I think a woman wants to feel like, not that she's being like dominated, but that she's being guided. You know what I mean?
She can relax.
Right.
That's exactly it. You're
maybe that's just our culture. Maybe that's just our collective culture.
You know what? You see it actually, it's blooming on social media of like girls now, younger women being like, I want to be led. Like this is not about being submissive or anything like that. It's more about, you know, we need back this like men that feel confident to walk forward and I can follow them. Like, you know,
100%.
Anything else is, it's kind of like an escape, quite frankly, from our biology.
Yes.
Right? So if you look back at caveman days, I mean, men would, they'd go out, they'd risk their lives, they'd hunt, they'd bring the food back home. Women would stay in the cave or whatever the dwelling was, and they'd keep it warm and clean and nice, and it doesn't, I don't think it demeans women. Like, that's the thing, is it sounds demeaning.
They did more than that.
No, I know, but it sounds demeaning, but it's not, because I don't think it's less important to stay home and like care for the home and for the children than it is to go out and get the food or hunt and risk your life. I think they're both important, because they're both necessary functions of a unit and of a family unit. But I just wanted to make another comment about, you know, Valeria, when we talk about me leading her and me teaching her and me kind of being this mentor and putting her in this like under pressure to be the best version of herself. I just want to make it very clear, like, she's like, it's like this most of the time. It's not as if she just comes, Valeria, I think you need to do this, you need to do that. Oh, okay.
Of course.
It's not like that at all.
Sure.
So I don't want people to think that in the least. So that's not the case. We don't fight about it, but she'll let me know, like, back off, this is my domain.
Yeah.
Once she feels she kind of has sufficient grasp of whatever that particular topic is. So no, it's not all a walk in the park.
Yeah.
I used to be so adamant about proving that, like the fact that he mentioned that right now, that used to be me back in the day, being like, but I make decisions and I'm smart and I say what to do too. And it's just so interesting that I didn't even had any urge in me right now to just be like, yeah, I'm like really smart and I make a lot of decisions and I know a lot, and it's not always Gary who leads, you know? So it's nice to be in that place, you know, of not trying to prove anything to anyone anymore, or to Gary. And I think that's why we work well together, because even in the beginning when we started working together, there was a lot of butting heads, because I was trying to prove to myself that I am like this powerful, smart, that I know everything, and trying to prove to him. And, you know, with the years of like working together and breaking that notion and the way I was operating, it's just, it makes it so easier to work in a efficient way.
The thing is like, I don't care if I'm right. It doesn't matter. If I've already gone through something, I've already done something, what's the point in going through it again? Like, what's the point in her going through it again? Well, it's just...
Exactly. But sometimes there is a point.
But
sometimes I do. I'm like, babe, you need to let me...
let me do this.
Let me make the mistakes I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, I always talk about it because that's something that I've realized now that I'm like older, is that it requires so much patience and an understanding for him to be able to step back. And you already know how this is going to unfold because he experienced it before. But to be able to step back and be like, okay, go through it, you know? Especially for me, I'm in my 30s. He's already done and experienced most of the things, but he knows that this is my journey. Like I won't be able to learn from your lessons all the time.
Right.
So the ability to step back and let me go through the motions is also, I think, like a beautiful thing in our marriage that I appreciate.
Yeah. I think, you know, you mentioned that there's nothing wrong with having let your man lead. I think we've been so confused as women to believe that even at home, you have to continue to be, you know, the boss all the time. And so many women are confused. I was confused for a long time too, you know, and I realized that I don't want to always do that at home. I want my man to lead. And we still butt heads sometimes, right? But we were butting heads a lot, especially like my husband and I come from a very corporate world. We were both working corporate jobs. And I always mention this on my podcast because I know so many women struggle with this. I would come home and I would compete with him without even realizing it. And it was awful. It was like he was like, I feel like I'm living with a male
Give
roommate.
me an example.
So he would come home. He's a lawyer.
I love this enthusiasm. When you said give me an example, I saw her eyes light up.
I was like, I got the story.
Because I know that so many women struggle with this, and I want them to know they're not alone, and I want them to know that it's totally okay to just relax and let your guard down, and because having a harmonious relationship is important for happiness, right? Yeah. And you can't, especially, I agree with you 100%. I think you're so right. Most women don't want to constantly lead. They don't want to, even if they think they do. There's something to be said about like when a guy steps up and takes the lead in a relationship, that like a woman just relaxes and just, you know, it feels good no matter what. So the example is, I remember it to this day. That was the first time I was like, whoa, what's happening with me? Like, what's going on? I came home from work and I was working in internal audit. So I was auditing law firms and my husband was a lawyer.
Which firm were you with if it's not confidential?
I wasn't with a firm. I was like with a governing body of lawyers.
Got it.
In yeah, that's not how we met, but I'll tell you later the story of how we met. So my husband had just become a lawyer, and it's really stressful, especially for the first couple of years. You know, they kind of work you to the ground, and he would come home exhausted, and he would share with me how his day went. And that particular day, I remember he was like sharing some really stressful moment with like his boss, or there was like a case where there was a lot of money at stake, and he was really, really stressed out. And instead of listening and being like, oh, you know, kind of tuning into his frequency and being a little bit more chill, I started to tell him what happened at my job.
Right.
Because
it became a competition.
And he just distanced himself from me. We didn't really exactly understand what was happening, but after like reflecting back, he was like, I felt like I was living with a male roommate. And my husband is a very masculine guy. He's definitely the one to take the lead and always, you know. And I realized, I was like, wait, this isn't going to work. Like if I keep going like that, and then now we don't work in the corporate world, we run our own businesses and stuff like that. But it was an interesting moment when I realized like, that's what I thought was just meant to happen. Like that's what our relationship was. Like we both come home, we butt heads, we're, you know, and then once I realized that it's on me to just kind of let my guard down when I'm at home, our relationship started to become a little bit more harmonious.
Yeah.
So
I never understood the shift between like dating and marriage, right? So when you're dating, women and men have their respective roles. Where women are, again, I'm going to piss people off, but women are almost more submissive, you know, and men are more masculine, right? And that's what happens in dating. But something happens after you get married and you've been together for a while, and especially when you have kids, it tends to either equal out or it goes the other way, where the woman becomes the more kind of aggressive, dominant, kind of the head of the household. And from my observation, and again, I don't have any data on it, but if I had to look, because now I'm at an age where I've gone through this kind of cycle of people getting divorced, like people that I know, And when I observe the people that are getting divorced or are just in a marriage because it's inconvenient for them to get divorced, basically the relationship's over in either scenario, I find that it's most of the time the woman has become more of that dominant kind of, if you want to call it an alpha role.
Yeah.
And that's, I feel like, and not to blame the woman, because it's just as much as the man's fault to have allowed that to happen.
Yeah, it's like a circle of,
yeah, it really is.
you know, both. I feel like it's on both parties.
There has
right?
to be a natural balance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There has to be a natural balance. Not to say that, and that's the thing, is like, I feel like it almost sounds like if a man has like a more traditional kind of male role and a woman has more of a traditional female role, not only in terms of like the tasks that they perform, but in terms of their demeanors, then it almost sounds like the woman's role is less valuable. So I believe that there's equality in the contributions of each person, but it's different. You know, the man just has a different demeanor and a different role. And I think the lines get blurred in society today, where men and women are like, you know, we have to do everything like equally. Like
I got canceled for saying that I'm anti man hating feminism. I'm all for equality of opportunity.
You don't look canceled to me. I've been on your social media. I think you're doing great.
That's what getting canceled apparently looks like. It was my first time experiencing it, and I was like, oh damn, this is not so bad. You know, by canceled I just mean like just attacks and comments.
So what were you attacked for?
I was actually on MBH podcast on My Best Happiness, and I basically in a nutshell said that I'm not into man-hating feminism, that I'm not into yelling around that I don't need no man because I want to be in a harmonious relationship. And how the hell am I going to be in a harmonious relationship with a man if I yell around that I don't need no man, right? And just like attacks from mainly women who probably hate men, right? Like it happens. Some men hate women, but it was an interesting experience. And I, you know, spoke up about how I don't understand where and when these lines, well, I kind of have an understanding now a little bit, where these lines got blurred and why on earth in our part of the world here in the Western world, we have decided that being a stay-at-home mom is like not really an important role.
I think that in the West, because there's so much progress so fast and we're so eager to redefine and revolutionize, you know, I think that we go through major extremes, especially now with the global communication scale, right? We were able to bring forward these messages so easily. It doesn't take years to spread feminism anymore. Yeah. So I think that we just have this like extreme. It's like the horseshoe theory, right? You go from one extreme to the other. And I mentioned to Gary a couple of weeks ago where it's like, I felt like we were just in the girl boss era. Then all the girl bosses got canceled. And now if you look on TikTok, it's hashtag treadwife, who's like the traditional women coming forward, have chickens in the backyard and like baking sourdough bread. And I was like, whoa, that happened so fast. I was just getting onto my girl boss era. What's going on? So I just feel like it happens. And then hopefully, and I think it's already starting to shift, like we're going to land somewhere in the middle where people realize that you can have both. Alter to your lifestyle and your family values, but it's not this or that. Yeah. In regards to, and I call it the crisis of men because, you know, we have 3 boys and I really pay attention to what's going on in the world. There's like so many studies showing how young men are so prone to depression and suicide and violence because as women, we made a lot of progress in the world, but we left them behind. Yeah. And they need us in order to function and, you know, have a meaning and a purpose, you know. A man needs to have a purpose. And one of those natural purposes is to provide and feel that he's needed and, you know, all these things. And we kind of left that behind. So I think about my kids. I think about, okay, how can I bring forward this crisis and start bringing like uplift men again because we need it. Yeah, you know, absolutely. Like we're now at this point, like when I watch videos of girls being like, I don't need, you know, I make money, I'm good, I have my girlfriends, like I'm checked out.
I know the podcast you're talking about. I wouldn't take those people seriously.
Which podcast?
You're talking about when they sit around at a table and they're getting like this like group of women who have these values, and I don't know.
You literally, you're around the table, women. It's like 500 podcasts.
No, I know, but like there's certain podcasts. Okay, so I'll tell you what it is. There's certain podcasts out there that they're designed to be sensational in order to get clicks and views.
100%.
They take women who are doing OnlyFans, and they sit them around the table and they discuss female and male roles. And so of course, women in that industry, they're gonna have certain opinions, right? And that's cool.
But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the 20-something-year-olds that are, sitting in their homes and, they build a career and they are feeling that they're dominant, and because men don't have the confidence these days, the whole splitting the bill, or like not picking up the girl, not opening the door because they're scared of the backlash. Like, are you that independent woman that's gonna yell at me?
I'll tell you what the problem is.
That's where I feel like there's such a disconnect.
I'll tell you what the problem is. People who are in their 20s now, they're living in an era, it's unprecedented. Right now, what's happening is that they're no longer raised by their parents. Or they're no longer raised by the nuclear family, parents, grandparents, teachers. They're raised by the entire world online. That's the problem. So if you have people in their early 20s, it's
not even early 20s, teenager,
any age. The problem is that when they're in their kind of formative years socially, not as children, but I mean like as teenagers and in their early young adults, when they're still trying to when a woman's trying to figure out what is my position in terms of like the roles in a family. When a woman, as an example, when a woman's trying to figure that out, she's being just hit on the internet every single day on multiple platforms, and it's all an algorithm. And the problem is that the algorithms are serving content. The signals that the algorithms get to serve more content is when content is consumed in a certain way. And so mostly sensational content gets through. So if you have a young person now, man or woman, who has an idea about the basics of life, like when it comes to relationships and having a family and whatever those things may be, their opinions are now based on being served sensational content by people screaming at the top of their lungs. Men are being influenced like guys like Andrew Tate. I'm sure you know who that is.
So, that's the name I was saying.
But not because but not because he's necessarily a smart guy, but because the way that he presents it is sensational and it breaks through on the algorithm.
Aggressive and confident, and it just goes straight. It
goes straight through because the algorithm is built in a way to serve the platform. The algorithm is built in a way to keep the user on platform as long as possible to serve them ads. So people aren't getting the best advice. They're getting the advice that makes the most money for the platforms and for the content creator. So it's almost irrelevant advice because it's not when we teach our children something, as opposed to when a guy like Andrew Tate teaches our children something, he's incented by making as much money as possible. The platform's incented by making as much money as possible. When we teach our kids something, we're incented to make sure that they're good. That they're going to be the best they can be. So it's very different. So I think there's a real problem in the fact that children are exposed to social media and technology as a whole far too early. So getting back to kind of the core of the, what we're talking about, the girl boss era, the tread white, whatever, all of this, it's like this court of public opinion on steroids because it's being pushed through in order for people to make money. So I don't trust any of this stuff. Now, that being said, these are the, one sec. That being said, hold on. That being said, the internet and social media isn't an all bad place because there's a lot of good that comes out of it. There's a lot of good that comes out of, having almost like this global consciousness where we can share information, knowledge, experience. That's great. The key difference between people who are consuming content and influenced in a very bad way, like women who say, I don't need a man. But the difference between that and people who consume content to their benefit is education and discipline.
100%.
If you're educated and disciplined on how you consume content, then you'll get the best out of the internet. Out of the collective human consciousness.
Absolutely. I agree with you. The same goes for global affairs. I always say maybe just decide for a little bit and don't listen to, no offense, a 16-year-old giving a history lesson on Eastern Europe or Middle East. Maybe look for other sources of information because it can get overwhelmingly stupid, quite frankly, you know what I mean, to just watch these things and get misinformed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And get influenced the wrong way. Guys, I want to keep talking and talking. I know we have a little bit of a hard deadline. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. This was wonderful. I will link, obviously, anything that can direct people to your pages. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Love being here.
And thank you so much to our dear listeners for tuning into this episode. I will see you next week.